Said that I'm here. Hopefully you are too. We got the comments. Hey, we're going to introduce you there in a second. Let me just say something really nice about you first. Friends, man, they're so unbelievably important. And maybe that is another big, or it definitely is a big key to this whole world of success, as we move through life, as we take on different challenges, as we find those opportunities that we get to advance through. Every once in a while, though, we need a friend. We need someone to talk to. We need someone to encourage us. We need someone to say, damn, that was good. Today's guest, all of those things, but also something else that was probably more important than anything else, and that's awareness. When we talk about awareness of opportunities, how to keep your eyes open to different things. Well, it's important to see. It's important to listen and look and take the time to do that. You want to become a better interviewer? It's easy. How do you do it? You have to be aware of the other person and think of things as if you were in their place. That's unbelievably important. And that can hold true over the interviewing, if you're giving a public presentation, if you're standing on stage, even if you're standing on stage in front of 1,000 people. It's still the same thing. How should you be introduced? It has to do with the audience. You must be aware of the audience. So our guest today has helped me actually become very aware of other people's points of views, the way other people see things, the way other people deal with different things. And I can tell you, I am really honored to have Doug join us here today. It is Mr. Douglas King.
Hey, bro,
Yes,
how are you?
I'm very good. I meant every word of that, by the way. You,
No,
you really have I
I
don't know. I'm going to use the word forced me, I think, in certain cases to really understand what it's like to be somebody else.
without getting into it, I've always had three things that have been very important in my life. Not necessarily this order, but it's faith, family, and friends. And there are some people that I have that are friends that I consider more like family, and that's you and your wife. Um, just getting on the phone and just chit chat about things, and some of the car racing stuff. Even though there's no way I will ever be able to get my rear end or took us into a car, it's a great thing to see and watch.
Yeah, hey, never say never, man. you know, there was somebody out there with a full blown minivan,
Yeah,
so it was. You never know. You never know. And look, I've never driven one of those cars. Not on, I've never driven the car on a racetrack, like that. But I have played passenger, so
I've sat in one back in the day when I was a teenager at Riverhead Raceway,
hmm,
and it was okay to getting into, but because the seat was so low to the ground, okay, it took a lot of time and energy, more energy than it did to get me out of that, that little window,
yeah.
to get, because I'm a big guy, and it takes a lot of energy to try to climb out of one of those cars.
Okay, all right. So maybe you and I are not going to really sit in a race car. Who knows? Whatever it is, there's so many different aspects. Just talking about that,
Hey,
that we could all participate in. And actually, Doug, I mean, some of that really has to do with some of the things I've been really talking about. It's not just the one activity; it's all that surrounding side of it. There's so many different ways to be involved in racing or in a public event or in so many different aspects of it that you don't have to be that person in that car. And look, there's a guy that's put up a photo. He's supporting the veterans, on that one. And veterans right there with rolling up on a wheelchair with a wheelchair, next to the car. He's
yeah,
very much a part of it, just like everybody else is a part of it. There's not one aspect of racing, of anything. I mean, you could attest to this too with so many different things. That's one person that gets it done. It's absolutely a teamwork. So who enjoys the experience? I think everybody in their own way.
I wouldn't mind just coming down and sitting there and talking to some of the drivers and motivating them on what they're about to do and uh, the reason why they're doing it. Because that aspect I've always found very interesting.
Yeah.
why they're doing what they're doing.
You and me both. I think that's why I like you so much. We get that same. Somebody thinks it's the same attitude. It's not what you do; it's why you do it. What's causing you to do something? Are you just a risk taker? Do you just want to drive a car as fast as possible, or do you want to go and do something as crazy as it is just because you're an adrenaline junkie? That doesn't really thrill me that much. It doesn't. It's the driving force, bum, 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 behind the whole thing.
But the
Whether it's trying to raise money for something, raise awareness for something, experience something new, and for the way somebody else would experience, or to learn much more about how something actually operates by being a part of it in a different manner than just being a spectator.
I've been through a lot of medical things within the last year, and I'd like to know between the doctors and the nurses, and also the technicians and everybody, why did you get involved in what you do?
Hmm.
That could be said the same on any profession. Race car driver, nurses, doctors, is what drives you to do what you do. To me, that's more important on, can you fix, a radiator or whatever.
Right. And that was something that came up in the presentation that you and I did, with Glenn back in the day at one of the local colleges when we were talking to the students that were OTs, occupation or planning on being, I should say, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and others in and around that surrounding thing. You had stressed the fact that their credibility, and it's not knowledge credibility, but it's their credibility of desire to be doing it that really will make them a great in that profession.
Well, the other thing I also want to look at, and Glenn knew exactly where I was coming through, is I wanted to be the last person to go into the room with the three of us. Okay, because what I was doing was I was scoping out the audience. Because here it is, two guys in wheelchairs, two leveling degrees of disabilities, and just watching their faces react of when we first roll into. I almost said walked into, rolled into, um, a classroom setting or, whatever the setting may be.
Yeah.
For him and I, it's nothing new. The people that are always around me, they know it's nothing new. But they just watch and see, what's going on out there, and gets to see what's life like in our world instead of the mundane, everything else.
Yeah. Well, that's why I thought that presentation was really good. And folks, what he's talking about is the three of us went, we gave a presentation to a number of students, college students that were going into the medical profession, obviously. But what we were discussing was not the medical aspect of it. It was the real life aspect of it. What do you do? How do they, as the professional, handle themselves when you get somebody like me walking in who more of that supporter or caregiver role in different cases where things are not going well. How do you deal with me and my emotions? And then Glenn, Glenn has got it. Glenn was in a stand. Glenn has since passed, but Glenn was in a stand-up wheelchair, and he's a big guy to begin with too. So
He
he
was
was like 6'5", maybe even more so with the chair.
6'5", close to 300 pounds.
Yeah, so it was definitely an imposing figure.
I call
Uh,
him. He was a big boy.
and then Doug comes in with the wheelchair on a mission, you know, and we really, in fact, I know since we're not operating out of that textbook world, we were operating out of a real world, that we brought a whole different aspect to those students and think really made them think about what they were doing, why they were doing it, and how they were going to approach the whole thing, and how they were going to approach the patient and those in the room. When that time really came up. So I think it was incredibly beneficial
And
to
it's
them.
so good to listen to the caregiver as well, not just the patient that's in the bed, but the caregiver, because they're with that person, like my wife and you and Karen. You're with each other 24/7. So you know exactly what's needed and not needed and how to do things and, so on and so forth.
Right. And but my whole big thing there, it's not just the information, it's who are they talking to? And I think you and Glenn really brought that out, especially Glenn, because Glenn went in there with somebody who was not uh, um, I forget what her title was, but it wasn't the spouse or anything like that. She was just really there as like the traveling nurse,
She's the
kind of.
registered nurse. Yeah.
Right. And so the therapist's comments can't just go to the nurse and it's assuming everybody's awake and alert and, things like that, that they have to be speaking to you, but understanding our role and really understanding our role, you know.
There, I will say this: there are nurses out there at different hospitals that sometimes I find their nurses know more than at least the resident doctors or the teaching, the student doctors. So it's always good to ask the nurses, "Hey, what about this? What about that?" And rolling off an idea with them because they know what it is that's going on from the medical point of view.
Right. And they should be paying respect to answering you, the patient,
Yes.
not just focusing on me, the caregiver, because just because you're a patient doesn't mean you don't understand what's going on.
Have to,
I mean, you and Glenn are like very, very, you live in this world,
yeah.
so obviously you know exactly what's going on, the rest of that stuff. Whereas, like, I've had situations where a question was asked by my spouse, by Karen, and then they're answering me. I mean, like, don't answer me. She asked the question.
We,
You could
we've,
look
we,
at me, but once in a while, but answer her.
we've gone out to places and I won't start naming restaurants. Uh, One of them wasn't so friendly, if you get my drift. Um, they looked at Aaron and said, "Oh, what does he want for dinner?" So I turned around and said, "Well, for an appetizer, I'll have your manager, and for dessert, I'll have your job."
Yeah,
Wound up being that we wound up getting that meal for free.
I bet you did miss the sarcasm.
So,
Yeah.
um,
But and I was mentioning in the beginning there too about the awareness that you've really helped me along with, and obviously speaking to those students really helped them become more aware of even realize that they need to be aware of the patient and the caregiver and the folks in the room. But from my aspect with getting to know you and being friends with you, for so long, is that what is it really like to be, in a wheelchair? And just the simple things. I mean, not the total lifestyle side of it, but like curbs. What's a good curb? What's a bad curb? I still look to this day every time
one
I'm in a parking lot and I'm going to go onto the sidewalk. How smooth that ramp is going up. Is there a lip that's 2 inches or a lip that's 4 inches?
I will tell you this: I've been involved on the political side, and I'm not going to go into it, but I've been involved in things on the political side. And basically, what I did is I issued our former governor, "Come out with me for a day and let me show you." At that time, it was the MTA, the trains, and getting on and off with the gap and the whole 9 yards. I wasn't doing it to be mean. What I was trying to show is come spend a day with me and I'll show you what it's like from a different point of view. That's all I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to insult the man. I wasn't trying to, you know, belittle him or anything. I just wanted to show him a different point of view.
Yeah, it's just we don't see it, and it's not that we don't want to see it. And maybe this gets applied into a whole bunch of different places, but it's not that we don't want to see it. It's just don't think of it. It just becomes second nature. Hey, there's a step. You walk up the step. What's the big deal? It's 2 inches, 4 inches. Whatever. You just lift your foot and go. So it's not even in my. I mean, prior to that, really, it was not even in my realm of consciousness. Maybe it was more so when I was a kid. because I had the bicycle, and doing that whole thing. But no, as an adult, I mean, I haven't thought of it. Then when you brought it up, I realized,
I
there's so many of those little lips or bathrooms that are too small to twirl around in, for you to, manage, that kind of stuff.
I've had friends of mine that I've known since the age of 5, and they'll still they'll go walking down a hallway, and then reach a set of stairs, and I'll just kind of look at them, going, "Uh, all right, which one of you guys is carrying me down the stairs?"
Right.
It's just our disabled humor, because they didn't realize or they don't consider me as a person with a disability. So it's just an automatic, get up and fly type of thing.
Right. It's just not thought of. It's just not thought of. I'm sure it's not a disrespectful thing. It's just you just don't even think of something. You just make these assumptions that while we're on floor one, we're going to go to floor two. What do? Take stairs, walk up the stairs. If there's an escalator, great, that kind of thing, but not look
No,
for an
I,
elevator or things like that.
Brian, I will tell you this. I've seen it on YouTube. There are buddies of mine that are in manual wheelchairs that take the escalator. And if you want to watch mall security go nuts, that's the time to do it.
Yeah, I'd imagine the safety committee is running on that one. It's like, that does not look like a very good idea.
Yeah. So
you know. Hey, but there's the other side of this whole thing too. You've done some absolutely incredible things. And I know you went to the Fight for Charity last night, so I definitely want to spend some time, chatting about that. But I won't say I won't say sculling again, but the curling, that is part of the Olympics. You've been
I,
involved with the
I,
Yankees and
I
stuff like that. It's like most of us never even think about these things, and you go out there and do this stuff.
all of the major league teams, no matter what the sport is, has a wheelchair team. So the Mets, the Yankees, even the Boston Red Sox, who I can't stand, have a wheelchair team. And that's just one of the things I did early on. And then I got a chance to meet the U.S. coach for wheelchair curling. Now I've been involved in sports over 25 years. So I said, all right, let's try it. So they spent a week, paid for everything, for me to go up to Cape Cod and learn wheelchair curling. I will tell you in the beginning, I was scared out of my mind because I didn't know what I was doing. Here I am sitting on ice with a bunch of professional wheelchair curlers, and these guys and gals were so great to me. I wound up being on their practice squad. Um, and it was a lot of fun. And they were as nice as they were on the ice as they were off the ice. You could go over and ask them a question or two, you
Yeah.
know, which was great. Um,
And for those that don't know, curling, that's shuffleboard on ice. That's probably oversimplified, but that's
it's a
basically what it comes down to. Well,
it's a 42-pound stone that has to be thrown down the ice to a target, and the one closest to the bullseye wins. That's the short version.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe I should use the horseshoes then, as the example. But obviously, everything's sliding down the ice. But that's wild. And I'm sure, one, they can relate to, the wheelchair side of it too. But I'm sure, look, they had to start at some point in time also. And, to see you, and I know when you show up at these things, you got the smile on, even though you might have been scared about doing the whole thing, but just got the smile on, you're enthusiastic about it, and
I,
you're there
I
because you want to try something new.
Originally, the reason why we picked curling, my wife is able-bodied, as you know, and I'm in a wheelchair, and we were looking for things to do together. There's not many sports or things to do together. So Erin had found in one of the papers, it's called Long Island Curling, and they do it in Syosset. So we went down, and two of the women said, we'd love to have you, but we don't know how to teach you. why don't you give this guy a call up in Massachusetts and see what he thinks? And that's when I got the chance of spending a week down in Massachusetts. So by the time I came back, I was like 80% proficient on, what the sport was about, how to do the sport from a wheelchair, and so on and so forth. Right. So if it wasn't for the two ladies that were able-bodied, that made the suggestion of going to see, the coach, I think is the greatest thing.
Yeah, it's great when those opportunities come up. And I mean, short of you doing this, I had no idea that there was even a possibility of participating in something like that. And that there's a group here on Long Island that does, curling. Just don't know. And that's why I find it so exciting to get involved in different things, because you become much more aware of these things that are right here in our backyard that you actually can participate in, and you're out there doing this stuff, Doug, and it's really great. Really is.
I will tell you what's funny is when I go to the Long Island curling and I'm just sitting on the side, not many people know who I am, my background, and so on and so forth. So they'll look at me and go, "Hey kid, you want to play? Sure, let me go get my equipment." I get it out of my truck, and then people start to notice because it's a specialized stick that we use to help curl the stone down the ice. And when I start setting up, they're like, "Uh-oh, this guy knows what he's doing."
All right, good for you. You're
So,
an intimidator. Forget this nice guy stuff.
Yep.
Doug King, the intimidator.
Yep. So
that's good. Hey, listen. Last night you had you attended the Fight for Charity. Good thing you didn't put your intimidator face on there. Don't want you getting in the ring boxing anybody. It's like, okay.
Absolutely. Aaron and I, again, we've been doing it for the last, 10 to 12, 15 years. And I love it because I used to love watching boxing with my dad. And last night they always have a celebrity boxer. And last night was Jerry Cooney. And that was one of my father's favorite boxers. So about halfway through, I looked at him and go, "Mr. Cooney, can I ask you a favor?" He looks at me and he goes, "It's Jerry." "Okay, Jerry."
Yeah, don't argue with him.
"Can I ask you a question?" He goes, "What's that?" I said, "Can I take a picture with you?" He goes, "Absolutely." And we took like 2 or 3 photos, which I thought was pretty cool. So I was like a little schoolboy, giggling in class,
Yeah. But that's what this stuff is about. And the Fight for Charity, they raised all kinds of monies for many, many different charities. It's an annual event. They had a little delay there with COVID, like with so many other things, but annual event here on Long Island, just really phenomenal thing. It's not even amateur boxers getting together. These are business people learning how to box, just like you learned how to do the sculling, but they learn how to box, and they get paired up against each other to have a good time.
These that are work in a company or owners of companies, and they train. I think it's like 6 months. And I tell them, "Listen, I've seen this done before. Don't blink." Because it's 3 1-minute rounds. And I tell them, "Don't blink." And there was one guy last night that got hurt. I felt so bad for him. He blew out his knee.
Oh, all right. So it's not actually getting punched per se. Lost his balance, or?
And I was not trying to be funny. I'm like, "Do you want me to give you my wheelchair?" He goes, "What you can do for me is call 911 and get me to the local emergency room."
Yeah.
And that's what we did for him.
Yeah. So what they do there with those, and I kind of looked into it one time, I opted not to do it. But that you are right, about the 6 months, I don't know the exact amount of time, but you do get to work with a professional trainer. You actually have to work with a professional trainer, but you do get to. You work with a professional trainer. They teach you the whole thing. Everybody learns. and then everybody gets paired up with somebody of equal or as best as possible, equal ability and equal strength, equal size, etc. Because the idea is not to get hurt in the ring there. The idea is to raise money and do something that's striking. We'll use that term as that, for this event. So it's a big deal. It really is. I say, Doug, it's very cool that you met Jerry Cooney. Really is.
Not only that, they got a chance to raise over $300,000
Wow.
for local charities. And that's really what my wife and I are all about, is helping charities raise money, especially on the disability, side of things. And
yeah, so Doug said we only have a couple more minutes, left, and we could chat about so many of these other things, and obviously how supportive you've been, with me over the years. We've done quite a few different things, and actually had a great time doing it. So thank you on behalf of me. But you work with different charities. You're an inspiration to different people. Is there any comments that you would like to make about that? Maybe a nonprofit or two you want to highlight, or what people should know if they are dealing with some chronic situation, in order for them to continue to move forward?
There's a lot of charities out there, and all I would suggest is contact one or two of them, see what they're doing, see what they're all about. Angela's House with Bob Pellicastro, Marty Lyons Foundation. There's hundreds of charities out there. And just start talking to them and seeing what they're all about, and where their money is going towards. That's the major thing.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that is a big factor too.
I can tell you, from the day you brought Aaron and I over to Bob Pellicastro's place, we sat in the backyard, just us and Bob, and we looked at each other and go, how can we help these people? And how can we get more involved with these people? And it's just been a great friendship between Bob and I, because Bob knows that I also do, the political side of things with disabilities. I'm on 3 different boards right now for disabilities.
And maybe, Doug, that brings us back to the sitting in a race car comment. You can't be doing everything all the time. But you can be supportive of many things all the time, and figuring out a way that works best for you in order to do it. Perhaps sitting in a race car is not the best way of doing it, but talking about that kind of thing. We're seeing the inspiration that's there with the nonprofits. Can you be a board member of everyone? No, but with your connections and different people, and your enthusiasm, likability, etc., it can be a benefit to many, many of the nonprofits out there that are looking for people to get introduced to different ways of either raising money, or probably one of the most important things too, raising awareness. This way, people that are going through something know that they are not alone, and they can have and should have different places to reach out to.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make able-bodied people aware of the different charities that are going on. And I'm also trying to get people with disabilities to get off their ass and do things. And that's it.
There you go. Doug, thank you so much, man. You're an inspiration and a motivator now to get everybody else going too. Thank you for taking time out of your day over here to join us. I appreciate that. I really do.
Yep. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thanks, buddy. All right. It's very much the case. As I mentioned in the beginning, Doug's been a friend of mine for quite a while. If I come up with an idea or something like that, run it past him, he's like, yeah, you could do that. You should do that. And this is what he would participate in, and the rest of it to make the whole thing work. It's great. Now he's doing that. Forget the me side of it, with these other nonprofits too, helping them continue on their quest to meet the right people, to gain the extra visibility and stuff like that. There's so many ways, so many different ways that we could help others. The question is, are you doing it the way that fits what you can do and what they may need? See, if we go too far astray, it doesn't really work. But if we can figure out what's in it for me, what's really good for you to do, what puts that smile on your face, does not have to be money, but really puts that smile on your face, what makes you feel good about your efforts, and you help other people do and achieve the goals that they want to achieve too, man, that's what it's all about. That's really what it's all about. Figure out that way for yourself to do that. Make it work that way. All right, we're good here. We're gonna wrap up another week on Tomato Talk. Uh, very much looking forward, to the future as to what we could do over here. And again, as always, thank you for participating. Thank you for joining us. And when you figure out that exact thing that you can do and you can help other people with, you're going to speak well. You are definitely going to speak often. And you will be an inspiration to yourself and to others all along the way. And people will absolutely see it. You can be just like Doug King. Have a great day.